America. Good evening. Today's topic has been weighing heavy on my heart for quite some time: suicide. If you yourself are experiencing suicidal thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. Please remember that there is always life after any tragedy. That being said, let's dive into the topic. Why is suicide something that we even want to talk about? It's something that impacts a lot of Americans. If you look at the CDC website, it says that approximately 49,000 people commit suicide every year. Approximately one death every 11 minutes. That's pretty significant. Approximately 13.2 million people in the United States have experienced serious thoughts of suicide. It's quite a bit. I don't know how many of you have experienced suicide firsthand. It is a quite traumatic experience for those around the circumstance, even if they're not directly related to the individual who was lost. That is the reason why I am so passionate about this topic. We'll discuss it a little bit more in a second. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about were causations, right? You look at a couple of different websites, you'll get a couple of different answers. According to mind.com, some of the main causes for suicide: mental health problems, bullying, racism, genderism, disability, sexual identity problems, identifying different types of abuse, bereavement from loss, the end of a relationship, long-term physical pain and illness, adjusting to a big change such as retirement, money problems, housing problems, isolation or loneliness, being in prison. There was an interesting thing where it was talking about persons leaving prison and their numbers of suicides. And if you can imagine, if you take a step back and think about them for a minute, people go to jail for all different types of things. Sometimes I can't say it's not their fault, but I'm just saying maybe they weren't the kind of person that needed to go to prison. I'm just saying, I'm not the judicial system. I don't make those things up. I can't, never planning on being a judge. I'm just saying there are individuals out there who mess up and they get slapped with some big old hefty jail time and they go off to jail and they get out and people don't want to help them. Their family doesn't want to support them. And they can't get employment because they've got a record. They've been sexually abused in prison. So, oh, hey, look at that. That's one of the causations of suicide. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. I've never had a full understanding of people's experiences in prison, but I'm starting to understand it. Sounds a lot like a military experience, if you know what I'm saying. Some of you out there know. Feeling inadequate or failure. Wow, that's a good one. Addiction and substance abuse, pregnancy, birth, childbirth, and even postnatal depression. Very interesting. Doubts of sexual gender identity. Understandable. Cultural pressures, and then other forms of trauma. Hey, I can't imagine that any of those couldn't potentially cause someone to go and hurt themselves. Looking at that list, it's kind of sad because I'm pretty sure I have experienced every single one of those. And some of you have probably experienced every single one of them too. So now the question is, are you safe from suicide? And why is it that I didn't go and hurt myself? I haven't fully unwrapped that, so I'll leave that for another time perhaps, once it's fully been identified. But let's move along and look at some of the other interesting facts. Some people will consider where a person's from, right? Like what cultural background they have, what ethnic background they have. Interestingly enough, it looks like non Hispanic American Indians have the highest suicide rate per capita at 27.1% of their population. This is all data coming from 2022 CDC website. Following after that, non-Hispanic whites, 17.6%. So, unfortunately, when you look at statistics like that, you can't really dive into it because you also have to look at what's the household look like. Was there both parents involved? Was there abuse in the household? So, looking at race right there, you're not sitting there saying, "Oh wow, Asians have the lowest suicide rate. I'm Asian, I'm good." Right? So let's not go that deep into data like that. But here's something that I thought was really, really interesting. Males make up 80% of the suicides. We make up approximately 50% of the population, but we account for 80% of the suicides. There's a lot of reasons I think that happens. If you scroll back up to the other list, right? Men tend to isolate. We haven't really been trained to, come forward and communicate. And I think a lot of women are much better at talking about their traumas with friends and in other ways. And I don't blow up my comments just because I said that. That's a generalization. I'm saying in a lot of cases, I feel like when it comes to emotion, men are averse to sharing, whether it be our cultural upbringing, whatnot. Other things that I would say from the list: physical disabilities. I would imagine that a man who, was vigorous and healthy and gets critically injured in some way and permanently limited on his ability to earn income and not be in any pain and be able to provide for his family, or if he's a single guy, be able to find a love and get married and settle down. Yeah, I think that could impact us. Adjustments like retirement. I will tell you, transitioning out of the Marine Corps had a lot of trauma to it. I got really depressed coming out of the Marine Corps. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of that because it's really not about me. This particular one is not about me. I'm sure I'll dive into that later. But really what I want to talk about is suicide. How does it impact us? How can we impact it? Can we impact it? Hey, there's a lot to that, right? So if we just keep on going and look at some of the other stuff about the suicide stuff, age categories, kind of all over the place. I thought I would see more in the teenager category, but no, they're doing okay. And this numbers are from 2022. I mean, we'd have to do a snapshot of all the different years and see what was going on geopolitically, stuff like that. Because I was looking back and it was interesting because it shows that there was a decrease in suicides in 2018, 2019, and it hit its lowest point in 2020 and then went back up. I don't know exactly what factors caused that, but it is interesting. Methodologies. Okay. This one is something that I think is worth some discussion, right? Methodology meaning how do people facilitate? It says 54 12.6% use firearms, 24.75% suffocation, 12.43 poisoning, and 8.17 other. I really want to know what kind of random ways people are killing themselves to categorize themselves as other. But and then my question on poisoning: are they grouping like oxycodone and like other types of drug abuse, like over medicating? Is that in that group? I mean, I would think, but I didn't create the data, so I can't speculate, right? I'm sure if I busted open their CSV, I could get a better picture of what it is instead of just the chart that they're providing. But hey, we could be here all night doing that kind of stuff, right? So, some of the big things there. Okay, that's enough for the statistics. Let's talk about suicide from a direct perspective. Okay. Uh, like I said before, I was a Marine for 15 years. And on one of my deployments, I had the mispleasure of losing one of my Marines. We were about 30 days away from coming back home, and he took his own life. Unfortunately, I did CPR on him until he took his last breath. There wasn't anything we could do to save him. It has been something that's been with me for a very long time. Probably will be with me forever. It had its destructive opportunities in my life, and I'm hoping that those moments are behind me. And that's why I'm sharing with you today, is because I don't want something like that to hold you back from the joy of life. And it very well could if you let it. So, without getting too far into the weeds, unfortunately, my Marine passed away. And from the information that I've gathered or has been told to me, much of the circumstances that led up to his deciding to take his own life were outlined in the list that we talked about earlier. So without me putting his stuff out there on blast, let me just say that my understanding of the circumstances lead me to believe that if spirituality was a little bit of more of a focal point in his life, it might have been a different outcome. And unfortunately, I had attempted to, and he had came a few times to church. But even at that point in my life and in my journey, I was ill-equipped and unknowing of spiritual things. Definitely young in my spiritual walk with Jesus. So I think that I might have been more effective if I had been more faithful to Jesus Christ. But also I think that it was something that I had to go through in order to make me be able to perhaps help one of you. So, God bless him. God bless his family. God bless my Marines that had to endure that loss. One of the things I'll share with you about suicide and how it impacts the people around you. Many of my Marines, even as recently as a few years ago, are still mourning. So that being said, if you are someone who is considering taking your life, consider this, that prior to deployment, most of these Marines only knew each other for 6 months. Went out on a deployment for another 5 months. So less than a year. And in some cases, maybe over a year. He had his best friend on the deployment too. Uh, but what I would say is that even with the lack or the limited amount of time that we knew the Marine, it hurt us. It hurt me. Yeah, there's still battle damage from that. So if you are someone who's looking at hurting yourself, please consider that there are people who may not even know you like that. They ain't. It'll still hurt us. So that being said, please consider getting help if you are struggling with suicide, suicidal thoughts, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of isolation. Okay, it's really important that you seek out others. I promise you that it will help you in the long run. So, bringing it back to the list that we had earlier, where we talked about the causes or potential causes or events that someone might experience that would encourage them to commit suicide, you could see very clearly that any type of traumas experienced in your life can be a precursor. Persons like myself, uh, yeah, I don't even want to dig into this, but you would be shocked at how many of these I actually do have. I think the only one I don't have is prison, but being in the military sometimes felt like prison. So, veterans, you know what I'm talking about. Um, so, where do we go from here? It kind of feels like we're like still floating out in the middle of the ocean. So let's kind of bring it back a little bit. Um, some of the big ones, I think, um, connect into other ones, right? Like isolation. Okay, isolation is the opposite of the solution, right? It and so if we avoided isolation, we could potentially have the resources and have the support needed to weather a catastrophic event, right? Earlier, you heard me say something, and this is something I've had to do suicide prevention classes a lot when I was in the Marine Corps. Ever since 2009, they would always be like, tag, you're it, which hurt me, but it also helped me because I was able to talk through the traumas and be able to hopefully discourage others from doing the same thing. But back to what I was saying is isolation feeds into all these things, right? I would say it's almost a secondary, right? It's like you just don't show up and you're isolated, right? You're typically isolated. Why? Because you're licking your wounds. Okay, a wounded animal goes off and hides, goes in isolation, lets his body heal, and that works in the wilderness. To a certain extent. I mean, if a big old bear comes and finds them where they're hiding, there's not a lot they can do about it, can they? But us as human beings, let's understand that yes, we're animal in part, but we also have spirits given to us by God Himself. So we are different. Animals are programmed, they run off of a program. They always fly to the same place. They always swim to the same place. They always have babies at the exact same time. And they always go to sleep at the exact same time. Humans, no. We have babies year round. There's people who don't ever sleep. There's people who sleep all the time. There's no programming for humans in the same sense. Because we have a spirit and because we have prefrontal cortex and all that brain stuff. Don't worry. Because we can understand that we exist, we are a head case, which means, okay, emotion plays a huge factor in it. Well, if you're isolated, your emotion runs out of control. Trust me. Um, if you're mourning the loss of someone, last thing you should do is be by yourself. You're struggling with a drug addiction. The last thing you should do is be by yourself, unless you're with a bunch of other druggies who are going to keep you going down that path. Um, there is something to be said. Okay, I'm going to take a step back. There is something to be said about people who can understand where you're coming from and people that are going to try to keep you there. You get what I'm saying? So if you have someone who's, turned the corner on a drug addiction and they are doing great, they've cleaned themselves up, sure, that's who you want to confide in. But the dude who just got through doing an 8-ball or whatever other terminologies they got, I don't know, I'm not proficient, is not the guy to sit there and be like, man, I'm having some trouble. Because you know what he's going to do is, let's just get high. That's not what you need. Okay? In the Bible, does it talk about drugs? Not really. But it does talk about alcohol. And I'm not sitting there saying that alcohol is bad. I'm not sitting there going to go and slap your hand. But the Bible says avoid drunkardness. And that would apply to any type of mind-altering substance. Don't kid yourself. Just because he didn't outline a 45-page, list of all the drugs that you are or are not supposed to put in your body, come on. The bottom line is if it clouds your judgment, it's not good for you. That's all we're saying. So being around individuals who are still in that struggle is not good for you. That's all I'm saying. They may be able to relate. Trust me, there are tons of Marines out there that could probably relate with a bunch of the stuff that I got floating around in my head. They're not necessarily going to be the best for me. That's not always what happens. I love you like a brother, but sometimes your cuckoo and my cuckoo put together makes buku cuckoo. And we don't need that, right? We need to be, brought back to reality, brought back to a center point. It could be cultural. It could be sexual. You could have been sexually molested, sexually confused, regretting sexual stuff that you've done. It could. That's a whole other ball. But all of them, I feel, would have way more drastic implications if you were isolated. They would last longer if you were isolated. So, taking a look at isolation, I want to take a look at the definition. Definition is without relation to other people or things. Basically being separated. A lot of times when we're dealing with sin, a lot of times when we're dealing with loss, a lot of times we're dealing with trauma, we isolate. And I would say, moreover, men isolate. I think women isolate in a lot of other instances, but I definitely can tell just by the fact that we're killing ourselves more than the ladies are, that there's definitely got to be a problem with isolation, because clearly isolation, right? If you take isolation out of the equation, because let's go back, right? Imagine you got column 1, it's all the causations, right? Column 1, causations. You've got mental health, you got relationships, you got money, you got homelessness, right? So all of those, let's just go with those, right? Those are primary. Then you have isolation, which amplifies the problem within the individual's mind, right? And when you're battling a demon, when you're battling a problem in your mind, that person is huge, right? So isolating, you feel like you're all by yourself. You don't have an army with you to help you battle this horrific thing. So what I'm telling you is I can't promise you that being a part of a group of individuals that you can trust and confide in is going to prevent you from committing suicide. However, I believe that if you truly have a support group of individuals that you trust, it makes it much harder. In the Bible, it talks about a strand of three. It's not easily broken. And so imagine that you need to have enough of a support structure. And in our current society, we seem to think that I've got 400 friends on Facebook, which means I got 400 friends in real life. And we know that's not true, right? You got levels. You got acquaintances, people that you saw once at an event. You have people that you go to church with every week, but you don't know their middle name. You know what I'm saying? So there are levels of relationships. And so when I'm not asking you to sit there and have this trust relationship, tear open your shirt, expose all your vulnerabilities to every person on the planet, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need a tribe. You need a group of individuals that will have your back. But let me explain to you a little something about having your back. You're not having someone's back if you're encouraging them to do something that's not good for them. So one of the parts of being a part of a tribe is being able to tell the other person, hey, I love you. I see what's going on, and I feel your pain. The best thing for you to do is stop this, start this, right? Now, I know what you're going to say. You're like, oh, you Christians. Hold on. I am a follower of Christ. I'm a believer of Jesus. I'm a disciple of God. The things that we do as Christians, true Christians, and let's not start slinging mud at each other, the Christian way is to sit there and love each other. But if there's something that they need to be told the truth on, you got to tell them the truth. Lying to your brother, lying to your sister, whether you think you're helping them or saving their feelings, is not doing them any good. Truth is what is needed. Truth is what is needed. Where do we find the truth? Where do we find the truth? Good question. The truth is the Word, and the Word is from God. You don't have to be a Christian to have heard some of these ideas that we as Christians believe in. You ever heard the saying, the truth will set you free? John said that. That was chapter 8, verse 32. You ever heard, do unto others as you want them to do unto you? Also known as the Golden Rule. That's Matthew. I can hear you say it, but Eric, America, don't Christians kill themselves? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say that people who consider themselves Christians perhaps go to church every single Sunday don't experience the same loss, tragedy, depression, mental health that anybody else does. What I'm saying is in those times when there's nobody else around and you're isolated, there's only one person you can go to: Jesus Christ. Now, for some of you, you may lean your hat on some other faith, some other belief structure. What I'm saying is having more than just yourself in many of these cases will oftentimes keep you on this side of the ground. So, I know some of you may not be ready for Jesus Christ. So I want to offer you this. There's life after every tragedy. How do I know? Remember that list we were talking about? Yeah, I've experienced quite a bit. And I sit there and I think to myself, what would have happened, or what would I have missed out on if I had taken my life in 2003 when I got a Dear John phone call that my wife didn't want to be married anymore? Well, I mean, let's fast forward to right now. Took me a little while after that to get saved, so I'm grateful that I am still here to be saved. But then also I have an amazing wife, an amazing two boys. God blessed me with my biological son going on 5 years ago next month. So I definitely would not have experienced all of this life post tragedy. And that's not to mention, trust me, uh, there was plenty of tragedies subsequent and after that. That wasn't the pinnacle of suffering in my life. I'm just giving you a for instance. I'm giving you a point and sitting there saying that there was life after that tragedy. And so I hope that if you feel like you're dealing with insurmountable odds, one, that you have a tribe of individuals. And if you don't, I strongly encourage you to check out Men's Alliance if you're a man, and Women's Alliance if you're a woman, and get connected with some amazing people. And you might even find Jesus along that journey.